This is a Hope 1032 podcast.
Hello, welcome to Undistracted. I'm your host, Laura Bennett, and this is the podcast where we learn from our guests how to be better at building our lives with intention around our passions, our purpose, and deal with some of the stuff that can get in the way of it. Simone Amelia Jordan is Australia's most successful hip-hop journalist. She's contributed to The Source, Vibe, Rolling Stone, ABC and SBS, and her celebrity interviews have notched over 13 million YouTube views. Simone founded and edited Australia's highest-selling rap R&B newsstand title, Urban Hitz magazine, and mentors the next generation of multicultural talent through her work with Media Diversity Australia and Diversity Arts Australia. Simone's memoir, Tell Her She's Dreaming, tracks her journey from Australia to New York City, where she experienced it all, from love to loss, grappling with her family ties to culture, the growth of her career, but also struggles with chronic illness and sexual grooming. Simone's story is about defying the odds to reach your dreams, but it's also about figuring out how those dreams can change as you do. Let's welcome Simone to the show. Tell us about your decision to really write a memoir in the first place, because it's a big thing to say, I'm going to open up my life and tell my story. Why did you want to share yours?
And Laura, you would know that as someone that interviews people. We're very comfortable asking people about their lives, but talking about your own life is very scary, especially I come from the old school of journalism where I was never meant to make the story about me. It was always about the subject that I was interviewing. So yeah, writing a memoir just totally goes against all of that. But I'm at an age now and a point in my life where I felt it was the right time to share the stories I've accumulated in decades of working in music journalism, specifically in hip-hop music. And I've always been a mentor for young women. And I just felt putting those stories to paper as something like a guide that isn't preachy, that they can hopefully refer to or see themselves in without kind of saying this is the lesson in each anecdote, just telling the anecdotes of my journey and hoping that it resonates. So that was why I did it more than any other reason.
And it's a big thing to see value in your own voice, I think. Like, I'm so with you that as someone who does interviews, you never want to put yourself in the story, and it's strange to think that your opinion would ever be part of something that you do. But to have a moment, I mean, maybe it's like you said, you've gotten to an age where you're ready to do it. But what is it that makes you say, my voice is one I see value in, I feel like I can actually speak and share my point of view on things?
Yeah, in the most humble way. I absolutely feel that at this stage of my life, both personally and professionally, I've hit some very hard bumps in the road and I've survived them in some way, shape or form, whether it's through being sexually groomed as a teenage girl and not realizing it at the time, through illness with my Crohn's disease. I have an autoimmune condition, just career-wise as a woman, and then as a woman working in a very masculine industry in hip-hop. I'm not saying that I haven't been scratched up through any of those bumps, but there are lessons to be shared from all of those experiences. In some instances, I think I was I pat myself on the back for the way I handled myself. And in other instances, I could shake the ish out of myself for the way I handled things. And I put all of that, warts and all, in the memoir, because why write something, right? Unless you're going to be completely honest about everything.
Yeah, you really do share warts and all, and I want to talk about some of those bumps that you mentioned in this conversation, but I think we should start where your dream really began, your interest in even becoming a music journalist, your fascination and your love for the hip-hop R&B genre. Tell us about that first moment where you went, my goodness, I kind of like this music. This has a connection to me.
Yeah, so I was born and raised till I was about 9 years old in Sydney's inner west, which at the time, that this is the 1980s. So it was quite working class, very multicultural. And then my mum needed a sea change. I was raised by a single mum and my grandmother and my little sister. So my mum moved the four of us to the Central Coast, which is, is like an hour to 2 hours out of the city. And my world completely changed. And for the first time, I felt like an outlier. I felt like an outcast. We stood out like sore thumbs as this Lebanese Greek Cypriot family at a time when it was quite monocultural on the Central Coast. And so feeling like an outsider led me to hip hop because the foundations of the music are obviously their own battle cry for Black American people. And I understood that the music was speaking for Black American people and to Black American people, but I also respected that message of its founders. And that message really trickled down into my ears as a young child, feeling like I needed a voice. And it became my best friend ever since then.
And when you're at school on the Central Coast, as someone, as you've said, feeling like a bit of an outsider, kind of put in this position, what did a typical day at school look like for you, showing up and having to make friends in that kind of environment?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question, Laura. No one's asked me that. I instantly knew that I looked different. And, it's funny. Not only did I feel like I looked different, I say in the book that most of the girls look like Carol Ann from Poltergeist, which was, I've been a horror movie buff since my childhood. And that's what that to me, I used to sneak and watch horror movies. God bless mum, she was working, so she didn't know what I was watching. But I felt like I was in a scene in a horror movie all of a sudden with all these Carol Anns coming for me. But I was also from the city. So the kids were a little bit different, into different things. As I say in the book, Daryl Braithwaite and Kylie Minogue and all these musical acts, John Farnham. And on a very deep level, Laura, it's not that I didn't want to feel included in that. We all want to feel Australian. We all want to feel part of this one community, right? And unfortunately, I wasn't made to feel that way. My mother wasn't made to feel that way when she started working at the local pub. My grandmother wasn't made to feel that way by the neighbours. And this is no exaggeration. I mean, the real stories are in the book. And I feel like even though we had discrimination against us, obviously newer immigrants, because my family's been here for 3 generations. That was the other thing. Like we felt Australian until we didn't feel it, until we were made to not feel it. So anyway, newer immigrants obviously feel it even more than we would. And so I instinctively knew that I was different and made to feel different, even though I tried to just be one of the girls. So yeah.
Yeah, and it's tough because there's a difficulty in, I think, whenever anyone feels like an outsider for whatever reason, that feeling like you've got to give up something of yourself to feel that sense of belonging, no one wants to have to do that.
No one does. And you know what's crazy? I say in the introduction to the book, I agree with you. Most people do feel that they have to give up something, whether like culturally or if you live with disability, if you're a queer person, you do feel you have to either hide or give up something about yourself to fit into this normative mainstream. However, I never felt that because of hip hop, because of hip hop's ethos of self-empowerment, self-love. I say in the book that I ran toward my culture rather than ran away from it, which is one thing that I will forever be grateful to hip hop's Black American founders for.
How did Black American music give you that? I mean, you touch on the idea of it having those kind of themes within it, but then it's also sort of quote unquote just music, right? It's something that people could kind of put as a genre that sort of sits over there. But what was it about that music and listening to it that really liberated you in that way?
Great question. So I think it's twofold. The first is I grew up in an era of hip hop music called the Golden Era, which was very focused on the lyricism, the poetry, the words. So I'm learning from artists like Queen Latifah telling the fellas to put ladies first. So I'm learning feminism at 9 years old, female rapper, right? On the flip side, Public Enemy saying fight the power. So I'm learning activism from another rap group. So within the music, I'm learning all of these key lessons that would stay with me forever. And then the second part of that is I knew instinctively very early on that if I was to love this genre, that to me was not just pop music. It was pop music, obviously, not just to me, to everybody, pop music with a message from an oppressed group of people. It was my duty as a fan to learn about that people's history. So I was the kid in the library eating up books about African-American culture, from slavery through to, Jim Crow era,
Wow.
to restoration, civil rights, antebellum. Like, I realized very early on that there's a saying in the culture, they want our rhythm and not our blues. African American, like, you want our gifts, but you won't stand with us when it's time to speak out against the injustices done against us. And I was very passionate to not be that person. I knew very early on that I wanted to approach it in a holistic way.
And you have gone deeper into the music, into the artists, into the backstories than so many other fans might, because there are a lot of people that do just take on the image of rap music and some of the ideas of it, the culture of it in that way, but don't actually understand this inherent identity within it. And perhaps that's where some of the criticism comes, to say exactly what you've said. You want our rhythm and not our blues.
Yes, exactly. It was very important for me in the book to talk about, stuff like, if you're not Black, you should never say the N word, and give personal examples of that, key lessons from educators that are important, because as a non-Black person, I can tell another non-Black person that it's not right that we say that word, but obviously it's more powerful coming from a Black person. So referencing educators like Ta-Nehisi Coates in there. And yeah, I mean, I'm just doing my best to show love to the culture that helped raise me.
And that really fed a dream for you that wasn't just about the music, but then becomes this globe-trotting career for you. When did you say, I think I want to actually move into this more as a profession? When did that switch on?
That switched on when I was 8 or 9. Like, that switched on when I first started to try and be a rapper, Laura. That didn't work. That didn't quite take off. And then I realized early on I wanted to be a rap reporter, because I'm at home, Central Coast, watching maybe Rage or TV Hitz or whatever show was on at the time, or even the mainstream news, because rappers were starting to visit Australia, international rappers, and just watching interviewers, journalists who are meant to be, very good at their craft, basically clown these artists and act really ignorant to the culture and say, yo, what's up, homie? And just really be disrespectful. So from a young age, I knew, no, I want to tell these stories authentically, give these artists the respect they deserve. And I really clawed my way to doing that with ultimately Urban Hitz magazine, which I started, which was Australia's, to this date, highest selling newsstand hip hop and R&B publication. And deep down, I always knew I wanted to go work in the mecca of hip hop, which is New York City. So ended up there after Urban Hitz.
And I don't think much would have squashed that dream for you, because there's a few anecdotes you share. For those of us who grew up in Australia and we probably had to watch BTN behind the news at school, the amount of classes I did where we watched BTN.
Shout out to BTN.
Oh my gosh, it takes you back. But it's something that, you would see something on a show like that or other news outlets and you'd go, no, I don't like that. And you'd write in and I love that you had such this, I love it. You're like, I'm going to speak up and say what I want to say. I'm not just going to let this stuff slide.
Oh, yeah, man. And I don't, I think my family, that's a combination of my family and hip hop. My family are very outspoken. They had no filter before there was such a thing. And my mum is just, she raised my sister and I to treat everybody equally, to speak out against injustice. If you see someone being oppressed or hurt because of any type of prejudice, you have to defend them. We were so lucky and so blessed to have a mother like that. And I guess, took things to the next level. My mum left school. She was made to leave school at 14 because of her father was very old school and didn't believe girls needed an education. And she said, there's no way my daughters will go through that. And she put us both through university. It makes me emotional just saying it. But, my whole life is a tribute to my mum, and my grandmother, just because they put in the hard work investing in us, right? So I just always felt a duty and a responsibility to deliver on that work. So, yeah.
They're both beautiful women, though. Like, understandably, it makes you emotional because your mum, Helen, her voice is quite clear throughout your book. Your grandmother, your Sita, she sounds like a lady you wouldn't want to mess with. Like, she knows what's up and she's not going to let you get away with things that you shouldn't. But both of them...
Laura, you got it. You got it in one. You got it in one.
They're just so, they're the kind of women you want in your corner, and they loved you so evidently through your travels and that sort of daily check-in kind of space. Is that what you think people need? Like, the ambitious girls that you're writing this book for in so many ways, like, is it about the people in your corner that you think help us get to the dreams that we imagine?
1,000,000%. I always say to the young girls that I mentor, who often, if they're coming from at-risk backgrounds, most often than not, don't have a good relationship with their own mothers. And I say to them, find a woman, any woman, it doesn't have to be your biological mother, can be an auntie, a cousin, an older friend, someone that is your champion, that when you start doubting yourself, lifts you up. Because it's crucial, because we all get those moments where we stop believing in ourselves. Those dreams that we've been chasing, we feel like we'll never get there. I've had those moments many times. I still have those moments many times. But those women, especially to me, and it can be men in your life as well, absolutely. But for me, it's been my girlfriends, my sister, my mum, my grandma, my auntie, this kind of circle of energy that really keeps me going. So I say to any young woman out there, this memoir for ambitious girls, if you are ambitious, which we all are in different ways, make sure you keep those champions in your corner. It's so important.
When you told your mum, when you told Sita that you were going to move to New York City, that you were going to take the dream to the next level, how did they respond to that?
My grandma said, you don't own anything, you're broke, why are you leaving? My grandma was very old school. She came here at 10 years old from Lebanon. So financial stability was the be all and end all for my grandmother. As I say in the book, I don't think she ever told us she had any dreams. She just worked extremely hard, 3 jobs. And she just provided. She was a provider. Whereas my mum was the dreamer. She wanted to be in the circus, God bless. And so my mum was very much like, I'm going to miss you. Like, she literally cried every day for 10 years I was away. And I know it killed her. And that killed me too. That really made me conflicted. But my mum was very much like, I'm so proud of you. You've always wanted this. Go get him. Which made everything obviously so much better. Yeah. And my grandmother was happy for me. But, even to the end, I don't think she understood exactly what job I did.
No, probably not. But I love that she would have encouraged you and supported you anyway. She's like, I don't get it, but I love that you're doing it,
So listen, as long as I put one of her many sayings in the book where I was like, I'm on the phone to her from New York. She said, how are you? How's your money? Are you okay? Yes. I said, I'm keeping my head above water. And she says in her trademark way, don't you think it's time to get out of the water? Yes, it is.
Maybe it's time.
Yeah, maybe it's time. But look, as long as their grandkids and kids were happy and making an honest living, so I was lucky that way.
Yeah, it's very special. And the conflict that you raise between staying, going, the cost to family, there's an emotional cost. Like, as nice as it is to follow a dream, there is always multiple factors at play as to why that can be difficult. How did you deal with that conflict? Because it's the thing for so many people that I'm sure either holds us back or that we just dive into.
There's so many people that followed their dreams, chased personal and professional goals, and had to leave home. And it was really hard, Laura, because I come from a very close-knit family. My mum is one of 7. My aunties, I've got 5 aunties, 1 uncle, and extended. My mum's got 1 million first cousins and everyone's in everybody's business. And everyone has an opinion on everybody else.
Of course.
And so it was really hard. I was getting a lot of feedback. I'll use that word. Family members, at times throughout the 10 years I was away, you're selfish, you're breaking your mother's heart, your grandmother's getting older. And I had to grapple with that and really seriously grapple with that at the same time as living for myself as well and living my dreams. I have a 5-year-old daughter now, and I'm already my mum is already saying, you're going to get payback. She's going to leave. But I do want her to live her dreams. And I hope I'm an example to her now to chase her heart's desire, but also be considerate of her loved ones, which I believe I always was. We stayed close in those 10 years. I came home as much as I could. Mother's Day, birthdays, randomly I would send gifts, flowers, just so they knew they were on my mind. Yeah, so it is a really delicate dance. It's very hard to, quote unquote, be selfish and at the same time think about your loved ones. To me, in every aspect of life, the major lesson is go with your gut, and it'll never lead you astray.
And there's a twofold thing there, because in one sense, it's a massive cost. If you or anyone don't go after the thing that you know that you are called to do and really give your time to in life, that's a huge cost, not only to you, but to all of the people that what you're going to do is going to impact. And then, of course, there's a personal cost if you decide to go. And of course, leave family as you did. But I think, thankfully, we're in a privileged position, especially in this era, and I'm imagining, down the line as well. We're so able to stay connected to loved ones. We're so able to just reach out, connect online, etc. So I feel like maybe while there is still a cost, at least now it's a little bit less intense than it might have otherwise been.
That's such a good point. And I mentioned that all the video chats that we were doing, my mum still wrote letters once a week to me because she knew how important that would be for me to receive those. And then there was a point where I kind of relied on them reaching out to me because I knew they would, and I left it on them. And they called me out on it, which is what my family does. It's a two-way street. So I had to snap out of that too. But this is Hope Media, right? And if I didn't take this journey, I wouldn't have given hope to the young women that are writing to me since the book came out and just sending these incredible messages of, I relate in so many ways to your story, and they feel seen. And that to me is so important, feeling seen. I know it's cliche, but you can't be what you don't see, basically. And I often felt growing up very one of one, very kind of an outlier, because here is this little girl growing up on the Central Coast, this little ethnic girl who loves hip hop music, wants to be a rap journalist. It wasn't really common. It wasn't a common story. But writing this book and the themes of coming of age, dealing with illness, family, culture, love, music, career, there's so much in here. And I think it's really resonating with a lot of different people, which I'm so grateful for. There's even a part about how when I was very, very ill and I had to leave New York City due to my illness, which I was crushed. I was devastated. It was at this point in my career where I'd gotten my dream job as the content director of The Source magazine, which is recognized as the Bible of hip hop. And I took this journey with my sister and her husband to Lebanon to see where my grandmother was born, and to Cyprus, which is where my dad's from, where he's also buried. And this kind of, I mean, I was born and raised Catholic. I'm not so much a practicing Catholic. However, my Christianity really kicked in when I was at my lowest point, and I went to these very spiritual places in Lebanon and in Cyprus. And I say that quote, Kierkegaard said, faith sees best in the dark. And it was at my lowest time when I just felt God and spirituality. So there's a lot in the book that I think will resonate with a lot of people.
It's such a great comfort because I know that it is in those darker times where so many people of all different faith and religious persuasions suddenly go, there's got to be more than this. Yeah. What do I find an anchor in through this particular storm? And I don't know if in your story as you write it and so many others, I don't know if we would find ways through if we didn't have some kind of something to anchor ourselves with.
And I was raised with a grandmother who is from the Maronite Catholic faith, and they are a very deeply spiritual, religious Christian community. And my grandmother was agnostic. My grandmother was constantly questioning her relationship with God, which made her an outcast in her community. So I related to her in that way also. But when I went to her village where she was born, I felt, like I said, it's so high in this Mount Lebanon, the altitude. It's like I reached my fingers and felt I was touching heaven. And just the history seeped in those mountains. It's called the Holy Valley in Lebanon. And I was literally on my deathbed. My doctors had said, you are life or death with your Crohn's disease. And as you said, in those moments, there is some type of higher power that personally I felt. And it kind of reminded me of the macro rather than the micro journey.
Yeah. That connection to origin, whether that is a faith origin or an ethnic origin, our heritage, do you think we need that? I mean, there's so many people that don't necessarily fully understand their heritage, or they've had to have a disconnection to it for whatever reason, immigration, etc. Do we need to understand our origin stories, do you think?
It depends on the type of person that you are, I guess. I definitely needed to because, again, my mum's side is third generation Lebanese. So we only held on to little bits of the culture, and we, quote unquote, assimilated into mainstream Australian culture a long time ago. My uncles were truck drivers. I call them Lebanese larrikins. And so culturally, in that respect, I didn't ever really feel at home anywhere. And then I always loved American culture through hip hop and lived there for 10 years. And so I do feel you need to know all parts of your culture, as you said, whether it's spiritual, religious, your ethnicity, nationality, all those parts make up the beautiful sum of who you are. So at certain points in your life, likely in maybe the lower points, not so much the higher ones, you do go searching. You do go on that search, right? And so going back to Lebanon and even Cyprus, my parents got divorced when I was very young. And so I never had a huge connection to my father. I never met any of his family because he was born and raised in Cyprus and only came to Australia when he married my mum. And when they divorced when I was little, he went back to Cyprus. But he passed away when I was a teenager. And then his family found my sister and I online, which is crazy. When I was doing all my interviews with rappers online, they saw us and connected with us and invited us to Cyprus. And we met his family for the first time.
Wow.
His son and a daughter before us that we only found out about later in life. You'll read it all in the book.
Yeah.
They became part of my extended family now, and I understood their Greek Orthodox culture as well. So, yeah, it's all a journey, and I do feel like they say you can't know where you're going unless you know where you've been.
It is such great wisdom. And like you say, there is so much in the book. It's all in there. We are not going to have time to even touch on everything. But I really want to ask you about something you do raise, particularly as a young woman going into quite a masculine industry, which is the context for so many, jobs, even in this current day and age. When you're trying to forge a path as a young woman, there were a lot of abuses of power that you only realise later. To younger people listening now, or even women of any age who are saying, I know my environment's very masculine, but I want to find a healthy way through it to not have those abuses of power take place. Is there anything you can do to kind of make sure that doesn't happen now?
Oh, look, again, Laura, I think you have to go with your gut. When something feels off, it likely is off. I ignored a lot of signs in my career because of different reasons. When I was a teenager, I ignored the older man who had a radio show that I wanted to co-host on so badly. I ignored the signs of him being sexual with me, sexually grooming me, because I, from a young age, knew what I wanted to do in my career, and I had tunnel vision. So I ignored these very negative aspects of his personality simply because I just wanted to focus on he can get me to where I need to be. As a teenager, I wasn't equipped with the foresight or even the confidence, I guess, to know how to shut that other part down and say this is purely business, right? And as I was older and had one quite vulgar incident with a rapper that I interviewed, I still wanted to keep my job. I was in a very competitive field. Other women were vying for my spot, and I was made to feel like most women are in their careers, especially in the entertainment industry. If I speak out, I will lose this gig and I'll lose, and all the hard work I've put in to get here, it's all going to be, for nothing. You're made to feel like that. And I think that we should support each other so we don't feel like that. We need to know that there are other opportunities out there, that you feel like this isn't your only shot. Mentors are really important. Get yourself a mentor. I mentor right now with Media Diversity Australia. Like I said, I've been a passionate mentor since day one. Get yourself a mentor so you never feel alone, so you know how to handle those situations. If you don't know where to find one, reach out to me. I'm sure I can refer anyone to people that can be in their corner. It's really important to know you're not alone.
Simone, you are such a great advocate for, I think, people with a dream, but also those of us who need a bit of encouragement through the dreams we're currently, trying to find a way to. So thank you so much for sharing your story and also for taking time to chat with us. Appreciate it.
You're so welcome. Thank you so much. We're all in this together. We've got to lean on each other a little bit more.
Simone Amelia Jordan. Her memoir, Tell Her She's Dreaming, is out now. There is so much in it. More of the backstory, more of the ins and outs of some of those really difficult moments, but also Simone's approach to getting through them as well. Whoever it is you're thinking of now that would be inspired by reading it, go and encourage them to check it out. And of course, subscribe to this podcast wherever you're listening. You can find video versions of these interviews on the Hope 1032 YouTube channel. And until next time, enjoy living this undistracted life.
This is a Hope 1032 production. Thanks for listening.